The Pure Land side is coming from Buddhism, that there is a place in your consciousness that remains forever radiant, pure, blissful, spacious, loving, kind, humorous, and let's go find out what happens next. And that Pure Land is referred to as where the Buddha lives. So of course, Buddha simply is a metaphor for our clear, bright, awakened minds that are not rooted in clinging or suffering. Pure Land is absolute truth. It's a state that you can live in all the time, uh, but
Hmm.
the wasteland is the relative world where we have to deal with conflict and struggle and old age and sickness and money and taxes. So the
Hmm.
two worlds are interpenetrating, but you can live in the struggles of the wasteland, the struggles of the relative world, from the point of view of the Pure Land. So you can be in a Pure Land state even while you are working in wasteland conditions in terms of trying to alleviate struggle and problems.
Probably everyone watching is very familiar with both of these experiences of life in the world. Some days are just you really feel like it's a wasteland, and then other days we're kind of in a state of grace and can
Mm.
really relate to the Pure Land. And the book really outlines how we can spend less time in the wasteland, the features of the wasteland, and how to avoid them, I guess, and how to cultivate the qualities that allow us to spend more time in the Pure Land.
Mm.
And
Well, in the
this is
argument,
based on our decades of experience and living and working in community here at Clear Sky. It really is kind of a consciousness lab. So we really get to see up close what works well to move from the wasteland to the Pure Land, and we share a lot of that.
I think in depth, everybody wants the Pure Land, and it is our view that
Hmm.
everybody has access to it. But that this is the point that I forgot that I was going to remember is that we misappropriate or misassign uh, substitutes for the Pure Land because we have a kind of lack of confidence that we can actually live in it. And so
Hmm.
we misapply it to some object, whether it's a
Mm.
wife or a husband or a career or a job. And we think, okay, I feel good there. I'm happy there. This works. So that's my Pure Land. But we miss it by just a hair because the Pure Land isn't contained in that object. It triggers the Pure Land, but it doesn't
That's
own the
right.
Pure Land. So if you can
That's
rest in
right.
the spacious, clear, radiant emptiness and move from there, then almost anything can be the Pure Land, including
Mm.
being a garbage collector
Mhm.
or a or a pen pusher or a broom pusher or
Or a
CEO of a
lawyer.
yeah, or a doctor or even an astronaut. Not to complicate things too much, but there are other kinds of Pure Lands as well. But these are ways of uh, describing the undescribable. So
Yeah.
we won't go into that here, but fundamentally a Pure Land is a label on an experience that can't fundamentally be labeled. It has no defining characteristics to speak
Mm.
of, and when you do qualify them, you move out just a teeny bit from the Pure Land. And so, as Catherine was saying, down line, every movement out from the Pure Land into the relative will be informed by the Pure Land experience if you don't forget it.
Our natural state when we're in a good state, we are naturally kind. So, in a sense, all we're doing is through spiritual practice, we're learning to manifest naturally, right? So sometimes it's a little bit easier to think of this instead of kind of changing ourselves, which we're also doing, but in a sense, we're just removing the kind of detritus of the our consumeristic society, our conditioning. Our some of our conditioning is good, but some of it is not so nice, and we're just removing that to expose the natural loving kindness that emerges. And when we are in that state, when we are expressing being in that state of loving kindness, we're living in the Pure Land in that moment. And spiritual practice just helps us. We practice it especially when we don't need to, that's the best time to practice so that when we really need it, it's there for us
Mm.
so that we can spend more and more time in that state, more and more time sharing a state of loving kindness.
Mm.
And it's not just loving kindness, it's all sorts of other cool things too.